All right, so I wanted to share with you guys some things I learned about GCs. I don't know everything there is to know about GCs. Don't take that this way, that way. I learned a long time ago that you can share what you know even if you don't know everything. So that's kind of where I am. It's like at this point, this is what I know, and I've had some success with these guys, and I wanted to make sure to share this with you guys. One of the important things that I've uncovered is some of the roles within a general contractor and what they do and what they value from us as a low voltage distributor. So let me walk you through some of these titles or these roles. Kind of sitting at the top of this is the project executive. This is kind of a high level guy who basically owns the project, and is, for bigger projects, there's usually always a project executive that's over it, kind of a VP level guy who works with the customer. He manages all the aspects. He's involved in the money big time. He can be involved before the award in what's called pre-construction, which is basically estimating. And I'll talk to you about pre-construction in just a minute. And then after they win it, through the operations team that actually builds it. So you may hear the term project executive. And then over on the operations side, on building a project, you'll have a project manager. And the project manager is basically runs the project from the office, is how I say it. He does go to the field a lot, don't get me wrong, but he's more sitting at a desk managing the problems, big picture schedule issues, any quality problems. He deals with the subs, the architect, the owner's rep. He's kind of the right-hand man of the project executive once the deal starts going. And then under him, on the site itself, you'll have a superintendent, a SOOP, site superintendent. This is the guy who works in the trailer, and he runs the thing every day. He's there all the time. He's got his hard head and his boots on, and he's dealing with the day-to-day operations, the day-to-day construction. Okay, that would be the SOOP. When I first heard superintendent, I thought he would be over the PM, but that's not the way it is. The superintendent is under the PM. They work together. And then on the side that I did not know existed at all in a general contractor is called pre-construction. And pre-construction is basically estimating. It's think of them as pre-sales engineers. They are working under the executive with a team of guys who are trying to win the project, win the construction project. And so they're doing all the initial estimates and so on. And on that team, you'll have a pre-con manager, and pre-con is the term that they use, not pre-construction. They'll say pre-con. Pre-con manager is going to have a bunch of team members under him who doing basically estimating. All right, and the people under that are called estimators. So these are the guys that are getting quotes early on, developing conceptual designs, putting together the bids. They sit through extremely long meetings. There's a GC in town here that's down to the last two for a big expansion of the Mercedes plant here. And they go all day meetings, 8 hours of meetings with that client to go over their proposal and talk about the team. They get interviewed. It's a big deal. So you got pre-construction before the job starts, before they win it, and then you got operations after that, and the project executive is over all of those. All right. So those are the big picture names of roles. Now, in terms of our value to them, what is it if I'm talking to a project executive, what do I want to emphasize? If I'm talking to an estimator, what do I want to emphasize, and so on. Let's walk through that quickly here. So a project executive, like you were saying earlier, big picture. Mostly from our perspective, it's going to be a money thing, cost reduction. So I'll give you an example. We're working on a big healthcare project here, and I'm reaching out and trying to talk to the project executive on this healthcare deal about moving the DAS out of the construction budget and doing it as an operational expense. So going from an CapEx to an OpEx, that moves money out of his construction and puts it over into something they pay on a recurring basis. So anything that we have like that, those higher level people, project executives and the general contractor, capital managers for owners or end users, developers, those kinds of things are going to get their attention. They're not going to care about subs. as a rule. Now, the pre-con manager, this is a guy he's over all these people. I found they're interested in training. All right. So I've got a training with a GC Thursday morning. I'm doing a BDA training for them, helping them understand BDAs. I can share with you guys a list here in a minute of the trainings that I'm offering. But these are things that I talked to you about earlier. I'm really having to learn a lot to be able to do these kind of trainings. But doing budgetaries. All right. They're involved early trying to put together the number for the proposal. So they want to know how much something is going to cost. So like we have numbers that we use for BDA and DAS, for example, that you can use to do budgetaries for these guys and say, hey, based on square footage, this is a good estimate. I've even gone so far as to talk to specific integrator partners I have to help me if they come to me for a budgetary for security or cabling. I've got partners that I've met with that I can go to and we can say, okay, we want a basis of design who's going to be CommScope, and here are the prints, and he works on labor and I get him some part prices, and then we come up with a budgetary that we then give to the pre-con staff to get us into the project. That's called a basis of design. Early on, they want to know what kind of manufacturer are we going to use to start this. And then as we go through the process, we'll refine that. Also getting subcontractors. Estimators. I've got estimators that essentially, they don't know low voltage. Okay. It's a black hole for them. So they want somebody that they can talk to about low voltage. If I've got a problem with low voltage, that's what I'll say to them. I'll say, you have any problems with anything low voltage, think of Wes. Just call me about low voltage. Budgetaries, because he's doing the estimates, basis of design, and subcontractors. These guys a lot of times don't know the subs in our space. So we can bring one of our guys in, and you think everybody knows all these contractors, but they actually don't. These GCs don't. Now, when the project is actually ongoing, this is where we talk about the project manager and superintendent. Again, low voltage questions or issues. So during the project, as they're building it out, if something comes up, think of Wes. Call Wes about low voltage. Subs. Let me give you an example. I had got a good relationship with a GC, one of the senior pre-con guys, okay? And he got a call from a superintendent on a job, and the superintendent said, the BDA test failed. I don't know what to do with this. So the pre-con guy said, well, I know Wes. Let me call Wes. So he emails me the failed test and a link to the drawings and said, Wes, can you help me get some numbers for this? And so I said, of course I can. So what I did was I went out and got 4 BDA subs. All right. I sent them the package and the testing. They sent their quotes to me. I put together an analysis of those quotes and sent it to the pre-con manager who sent it to the superintendent. Got on a call with the superintendent, and then he was like freaking out. He loved it. He said, I'm going to tell everybody in my office about you. I didn't have to do anything here. This is great. And so now they selected one of them, and we're going to get an order. We should be getting it any day now for that BDA. But that's just an example of how you can bring value simply by who you know and being willing to be their sort of, the person that they think of for low voltage. And the superintendent will be the same. Subcontractors, if you need something, and that BDA test would be, another example of how that works. Any questions at this point?
That's awesome.
No, good job.
So let me talk to you about how they build buildings. There's the way they approach it affects our value and who we talk to and when. All right. So there are 5 or 6 ways to do it, but the biggest 3 that you'll hear of are design, bid, build, and then construction manager at risk. So let me walk you through that. So design, bid, build is the traditional way that you're used to seeing it. An owner hires an architect who has an MEP and a technology consultant. They write all the specs for the building. When they're done with it, they produce what's called construction drawings, CDs, and specs. They send it out and they say, GCs, whoever wants to bid this. They get the bids in, they award it. Okay. Multiple GCs, generally a low bid situation. That's design, bid, build. Your general contractor is simply responding to a spec, trying to get the best numbers, make sure he's got some good subs to win the job. Okay. That's design, bid, build. Design, build is the owner goes to the GC. They hire the GC up front. The GC then hires the architect, the MEP, and the consultant, and he is responsible for both designing it and building it. So this makes him more of a decision maker than, say, the design, bid, build. The GC is really in control of not just the numbers, but the whole design as well. So he's acting as a designer. And then there's something called CMAR, which is construction manager at risk. Oops, sorry guys, went a little ahead of myself. All right, the construction manager, we can talk about this later. I don't want to overwhelm you with too much detail right now, but there are companies that are just construction managers. And so what happens is the owner, let's say that they don't have enough staff to manage the GC. So they will hire a construction manager, and that construction manager will sit between the owner and the GC and kind of manage the construction. All right. That's a construction manager, separate entity. But in a construction manager at risk, the GC basically is his own construction manager. He works directly with the owner and the architect. And at a certain point in the process, he gives the owner a number that he will not exceed. It's called gross not to exceed, or there's a term for it. Guaranteed price not to exceed. And they say, we're going to build it now for $57 million. And then they take the risk. They have to come in under 57 million. All right. So those are the three ways that do it. Now, I want to walk you through our value at these. So when you're talking to a GC on a project, you say, is this a design build? Yeah, this is design build. That tells you, okay, they're hiring the architect. They're in control of the design. I need to talk to them like an architect. Is this a design build? No, it's design, bid, build. Okay, then the specs are already written. There's less value for me for the GC. So what are our values here? For design, bid, build, because the GC is not really in control of any specifications or design, it's really mostly about, first of all, you got to work with the owner and the engineer and the consultant to get spec position. If it's design, bid, build, you got to get to the guys who are doing the specs. But from the GC's perspective, really the most you can do is make sure your low voltage guys are bidding it. And your value is, I can make sure you have plenty of bidders for this. And believe it or not, getting bidders is sometimes difficult, especially with all the construction that's going on. Everybody's pulled, and they can't always get the number of bids that they need. Also, general contractors sometimes don't like their subs. So you can say, hey, on your security, you like your subs, you want more. So in that case, really all you're doing is trying to get your subs involved. So those subs will have to get a number from you so you can quote it. Okay. Not much you can do there otherwise. Design, build, you're going to work with that general contractor as if he was the owner, as if he was the engineer, as if he was the consultant, because he really is. So that goes over to that knowledge-based value that we talked about. Spec value, design ideas, budgetaries, specs, basis of design. All right. Once you hear design build, you got to think, okay, I'm going to my knowledge-based value. I'm trying to help them with specifications and budgetaries and all that. And with the CMAR approach, you kind of got a little bit of a hybrid. You've got the owner, the engineer, and the consultant on one side, and then you've got the GC on the other working together. Because of he's at risk and his money's on the table, cost issues become really important in a CMAR. Because if the GC can't build it for that, he has to eat it. So any big picture thing that we've got that can reduce total cost is very valuable to the GC in that area. Any questions on that one, guys?
Nope.
So,
That's good.
So you currently have your most success in that design build category.
Yes. That's one of the first things I ask now. One of the first things I research when I have a new GC I'm talking to is how much design build do you do? And if he's saying, well, we do mostly all design build, and I've got the biggest contractor in town is mostly all design build, and I'm getting really tight with them. But I don't want to devalue the other guys. Like, okay, you do your design bid build, most of your stuff, you're just responding. Okay, let me make sure I got my contractors involved. Then the contractor has to be loyal to me and quote something that I wanted to quote. So there's value in it for our side, but yeah, the biggest piece of it would be the design build. And the guy who called me who said, hey, we got a BDA test that failed, that's a design build guy. All right. And then the last thing, how to work with a general contractor. How to work a general contractor, I should say. All right. The first thing that I realized is it's just like working any other account in the sense that you're setting up meetings, you're doing lunches, you're doing events. Tomorrow, I met a pre-con guy at a general contractor a few weeks back, and I've got lunch with him tomorrow, just like I would if I had just met a new data contractor. Yeah, I met him at an event, traded cards, emailed him, set up a lunch. Same thing. And when I talk to him tomorrow, I'll just be talking value proposition for a pre-con guy at a GC. So I'll be talking about our ability to do budgetaries, how we can recommend low voltage subs, we can provide a basis of design. That's exactly what I'll talk about. So instead of saying, we got stock on all the big lines, we get best pricing, we can cut cable for you like I would to a data contractor, I'm just switching what I'm talking about with these guys. And it's really important to emphasize that they don't know low voltage. You may go, I'm intimidated, I'm worried they're going to know more than me. They don't. They're very, very smart, but they cannot understand every one of those divisions, man. All the stuff in there, they can't do it. Taking this pre-con guy at this big GC to a Braves game on Saturday, just like I would a contractor. So it's the same process and the same kind of things, just with a different set of people. Now, in terms of getting into them, all right, like, I don't even know how to start. All right, let me give you some ideas, okay? Ask your manufacturer partners for contacts. The very first GC I met with, I was at a breakfast meeting with the CommScope rep, and I said, man, do you know any GCs? Do you know anybody over here? And he said, yeah, actually I do. And he sent me the guy's name, and he happened to be a sales guy for this contractor. I reached out to him. We had lunch. He turned me on to the pre-con guys. Bada, 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 boom. Okay. So that all came from CommScope, one of our, regular vendors. So ask them about that. Contractor partners. A lot of your contractors are submitting stuff to GCs for their submittals on their projects. Some of them are going to the electricals, but some of them are going directly to the GCs. So I've got a good friend at a local fire alarm dealer who buys a lot of firewire from us and cameras and stuff. And I was like, man, can you hook me up with somebody over here or over there? And he's like, hey, I know them. Here's pre-con over there, and this is an estimator, and this guy, they know them already. So you can get that contact information from them. Through your construction leads. If you look at your construction leads, the ones that are getting closer to bidding, where you're moving out of the planning stages to actual bidding, about halfway down that list there, you're going to have owner, GC, EC, and under the GC, you'll probably have a PM. So you'll have names in those that you can just email and see if they'll, present the value proposition of that's appropriate for who you're trying to talk to, and see if you can get them to take a meeting. Okay, it's right there. I want to recommend, on the point of getting in, I want to recommend 2 associations. If you're not a part of these yet, these are really, really good associations for what we're trying to do here. the Association of Medical Facility Professionals, AMFP. I got involved in that last year.
Night.
Man, I don't know how yours will be, but for me, it's full of GCs.
Yeah.
Huh?
Is that a Knights game? Yep.
Yeah, they're full of GCs, engineering firms, architects, and guys who work at hospitals.
Yeah.
So I just think that's a tremendous one. I actually got on a committee this year for ours here in Charleston on the programs committee. And as it turns out, when they announced that I was part of that team in an email, one of the guys that responded and welcomed me aboard is the guy that I'm having lunch with tomorrow. So he hears from me on an email, and he accepts a lunch, and then all of a sudden he finds out I'm on AMFP. So you see how that ties together and makes him think, okay, well, Wes is really involved here. This is a good contact. The other is Construction Managers Association of America. I've just got involved with them. One of the outside sales guys for a construction company here, a GC here, is the president of it. He invited me, and I went last week, met 2 outside salespeople from 2 GCs that I was trying to get into, and a guy from a construction manager that I had heard about, but I had not been able to get to in that meeting. So very, very important. So Construction Managers Association of America, if you haven't joined that. And then finally, let me mention, all of these GCs have a built-in breakfast and learn or lunch and learn process. In other words, it's part of their culture for a vendor, like a subcontractor, a manufacturer, a partner, anybody who's, could bring value to their process, to come in during a lunch meeting or a breakfast meeting and introduce their company or do a training or anything like that. I've got, Wednesday morning at 8:30, I've got a breakfast and learn at a big GC here in town with the whole pre-con team. And they've got like 10 guys on the pre-con team. So it's a part of the process. It's not something where you feel like you're forcing them and trying to make them do something that they don't normally do. So most of them do it on a regular basis. What I recommend you do is, whoever you meet at the GC, let's say that you meet a salesperson and you say, hey, you guys do lunch and learns in your office? Oh, yeah. Well, how would I get on your schedule to do one of those? Oh, that's Sally Mae. Well, could you share her contact information? And you say, Sally Mae, I met with Bob the other day. He said he recommended I get on your schedule for doing a lunch and learn. What is your schedule and how could I do that? It's that easy. I've probably done 10 of them in the last 4 or 5 months. It's really easy to do. And then you can sell Accutech, or you can sell a 101 training. Again, you guys might not want to do this. It might not be your thing. I like to do them, and I find a lot of value in them. Let's see. I don't know. Can you see this PDF? See this on the screen?
Yes, sir.
This Word document is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, this is something I created for myself that I give, and I'll give the guy tomorrow one of these, and I'll give it to the one on Wednesday, the Breakfast and Learn too, where I try to do these 101s for them. And they really like these, man. And so data cabling, fiber, IT networking, cameras, and DAS and public safety. I've got one on Thursday for a BDA, and I'm still finishing that presentation. But I found that to be very successful. What that does is it creates in them, you're not just selling me something. You're a technology expert. You guys know what you're doing. I can rely on you. I can count on you. I can call you for stuff I need, if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.